Welcome to 1991 Movie Rewind, a podcast where we watch and review every movie released in 1991, from the all-time greatest classics to the critically panned and everything in between. We will rediscover forgotten fan favorites and uncover hidden gems as we explore the depths of direct-to-video. Join us in our celebration of the fun, unique, and diverse films of this highly underrated year. This week, we watched Vegas in Space. In Vegas in Space, Captain Dan Tracey, played by Doris Fish, and his crew are being asked to go undercover on another planet to investigate the theft of important girlinium gems. However, the planet in question does not allow men, and so they are given pills to change their sex so they can infiltrate Vegas in space while posing as traveling showgirls from Earth. Screenplay by Doris Fish, Miss X, and Phillip R. Ford, directed by Phillip R. Ford, and premiered at the Castro Theater in San Francisco in October of 1991. I know you haven't seen this, but have you heard of this movie before?
No.
I hadn't either until I was formulating the list for this. And it stood out as one that I was really interested in seeing. And
when you said that this was like a drag movie, I was... very interested in it.
We made a short list of all of the movies that were from 1991 that appeared on USA Up All Night, because this is USA Up All Night month on the podcast. And we were going through which ones were possibilities, and then you're like, well, what's Vegas in Space? And I explained, it's a drag movie, campy drag movie. You're like, okay, let's watch that.
Yeah.
And it's available on free for streaming, then sure, yes, let's do it.
I'm surprised that I haven't, because I'm living there for a few years. I've just never seen it. And then they have done showings of it since then.
Yeah.
And it was, I know one of the drag queens that I know that's still there, she does this, her name is Peaches Christ. She does a midnight mass at sometimes she does it at the Castro, but there's another theater, the one that I used to go to, that I think it's gone now, the Clay Theater. That's where I saw Showgirls.
Okay.
And I saw Teen Witch. And that's when, but those shows that Peaches Christ did, they would do little skits in between. Like, they would show the movie, but then they would stop the movie partway.
Yeah.
And do, like, a little skit.
Like an MST3K type of a...
Yeah, but
episode.
They would, like, recreate a scene from the movie on stage.
Okay.
With the drag queens on there.
Got it.
Those are the only times that I've been to those midnight mass shows. And those were a lot of fun. And I know that they did one for Vegas in Space, and it was like a 15-year reunion.
Sure. Which,
I mean, I wasn't there at that time. But I'm wondering, they probably did like, a 20-year and then 25, maybe even 30-year.
Maybe a 30. Yeah, it's tough to say what was possible during pandemic times. And
yeah, and then I've just looking up other stuff, like the 3 drag queens. I mean, this is like well before my time living there, or even just because we were just
it's
like
almost
kids.
Before our time living.
Yeah, living
in general.
Because they like these 3 drag queens started this Sluts-a-go-go show in like in the late 70s, early 80s in San Francisco, and that's what they were all like, let's make a movie type of thing. They were like, hey, what about making a movie just for funsies?
So I think it's important to say that this movie, it's not for everyone.
No.
It was never. I don't think it was ever meant to have mass appeal. It's meant for a very specific audience, and you either like it or you don't. Personally, I think learning about the movie was much more interesting than watching the movie itself.
But while learning about it, it made me appreciate the movie and like it more.
Definitely.
Like if I watched, I wish there was like a behind the scenes documentary on the making of this that coincided with this movie.
It might be on the Trauma DVD.
Okay.
So, because this had a very long story to production, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but the end of it basically is that nobody else picked it up except for Trauma, who is known for, Toxic Crusader, Toxic Avenger, and Sergeant Kabuki Man, and all kinds of, varying degrees of independent, weird, quirky stuff that has its niche audience. Niche, however you want to pronounce that audience. This fits right in to that whole thing, and I'm glad that they did pick it up. And so they have released it on home video, on VHS and DVD, and that's probably why it's available on Prime, is because of their, Troma probably has some sort of agreement with Amazon, and so there may be something on the DVD, but even not, there's a very good comprehensive blog written by the director Phillip Ford that goes through a lot of the history of the production. I think a lot of the problems I have with this movie, if we want to talk about the actual criticisms of it, has to do with the fact that this was basically all shot between 1983 and 1986, and then it was 6-7 years of post-production, and then it finally got released in 1991.
Yeah.
So a lot of the... And also the other part of it is that this was clearly started without a finished script. They had an idea of what they wanted to do, but they didn't have an ending in mind. They didn't have, a full structure of where the story is going to go. It's like, let's get our friends together and make something.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing, except for when you're trying to, someone like me who's outside of the scene watches the movie, it makes it tougher for me to get into it.
Yeah, it's like they made this just for themselves and for the fans of their show that they do in San Francisco.
Yeah, this is clearly meant to have
I think it was just like a personal
in the Castro
thing.
and other areas in San Francisco, and I doubt they ever expected it to go farther than that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it does hurt the overall quality of the movie if you want to look at it from that critical standpoint. And it's not unique to independent filmmaking like this. I mean, we saw it with Company Business, where they went into the movie without a completed script, and how lackluster that experience turned out to be. I think it's the same type of thing here. What saves this, I think, is just the vast variety of filmmaking techniques that are employed in this movie.
Yeah.
And also just the visual overload is most, if not all, of the fun.
Yeah.
So it's less about the spoken word. I have a lot of problems with the spoken word aspect of this movie.
Yeah, because
but the visual side is amazing.
Oh, yeah. Visually, I liked it. And then I appreciated, the set design just for them doing stuff in their own apartments.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yes.
And then in random warehouses and stuff across the city of San Francisco. And then they just randomly would go to Twin Peaks or whatever just to do that one scene.
Exterior shot. Yeah.
And people just around were like, what the hell's going on while they're filming it. I mean, the set, so the design that they did, with the spaceship and the scenery and the mountains and stuff, that must have taken a lot of time to do. I like how attention.
The miniatures, you mean?
Yeah, the miniatures.
Maybe not. I know that was one of the last things that got shot.
It's when you look at, there's like a screenshot of it. When you look at it, it's just like the attention to detail.
But I think one of the trivia tidbits is that Doris was able to buy that mostly intact from like a storefront window.
Oh, so it was already a landscape
to make it look like a Vegas in space thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So she wasn't handcrafting the mountains and everything. I think
a lot of it was
I see like pre-built and then added like
it's kind of like the
Beetlejuice
like a couple thing that
the model town.
Yeah, the model town that Alec Baldwin made. That's what it looked like. I'm like, that's so meticulous, and like whoever did that spent so much time.
Yeah, I think it had to have been pre-bought just because it goes so far from the normal aesthetic of the other props, where it's basically just here's a sign handwritten to say, like there's a lot of that type of stuff where just here's some pink fur draped on a door and there's our background. Yeah. There's a lot of that type of stuff that happens.
But even that stuff, like when they did like the throne room or whatever, like all the drapery and stuff looked nice.
Yes, for what it was. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious from the very, very start that it has virtually no budget.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like that's something that's very easy to accept and I don't even want to say overlook, because it's not something you overlook. It's just something that becomes part of your viewpoint. I don't know how to explain it properly. It's not a negative because it's evident. If it was something like company business and then they had like shoddy production design where you could see flaws in the backdrops, or that you can see like terrible special effects, then that's a problem. But when it's this, and how independent it is from the get-go, you tend to appreciate scenes like what you're talking about, like the miniatures, where there is more detail in there. Like you get surprised when there's more than what you see. Like you almost expect there to be virtually nothing. And they're also trying to do that on purpose to a degree. It's not just because of necessity, but they're also trying to go for those really low-budget 1950s, 1960s sci-fi movies. That is the aesthetic that they're going for. They're trying to camp it up. And I think that's one of the things I really appreciate about this movie as well, is that it leans in hard to the campiness. It's unapologetic in terms of what it's trying to do. Which is really more impressive considering it was basically made in the early 80s. It didn't get released until 1991, but in all essence it was released, or it was basically made between 83 and 85, 86. Mm-hmm. So, we're really talking about a movie that was 5 to 10 years prior to this, and I think it makes it much more culturally important because of that.
Yeah, like this is one of the... because this movie comes out around the same time as, like Paris. You have a lot of queer cinema coming up around like 1990. You see Paris is Burning. And then you have something like Vegas in Space that you can see how, even just watching like RuPaul's Drag Race, how that's inspired from these movies from like 30 years ago.
Yeah, and I think
just like even watching Drag Race, I'm thinking about this movie now because of just like the skits in movies that they have to do.
Yeah, the whole time I was watching this, I was thinking, it would be so fun to see a bunch of cast members of RuPaul's Drag Race come together and do something similar to this. Or remake
or like
this movie,
because I know they recreate. They do. There was like a season where they did like John Waters movies. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know why I'm talking, but I'm assuming RuPaul would know what Vegas in Space is.
Oh, almost definitely.
And would like reference. I'm just like thinking, would anyone like who would be a contestant on there would want to like reference any of this, and because there are contestants that have been on the show that reference like Paris is Burning.
Sure.
But I mean, the show RuPaul's Drag Race is kind of like from Paris is Burning, because you're doing the ballroom scene. I mean, this isn't ballroom at all. It's just drag queens.
It's meant to be
making
like the
a movie,
lounge. It's
like
really
from
meant to be
their
retro drag. Yeah.
Yeah, their retro drag from the show that they usually do at the clubs that they played at during that time.
Yeah, they're very 1960s mod inspired with everything that they do. And the whole idea, like a lot of the promo material that they talk about is that this is a futuristic sci-fi movie set in the 21st century, but they're pretending like it was made in the 1960s.
Like from the 60s and 70s,
yeah,
like
they're
Barbarella
basically trying to
or
pretend
something.
like this movie was made in the 1960s and it was discovered now type of thing. So there's a lot of weirdness with that. I think it's important to talk about the whole RuPaul Drag Race side of things, because it shows how far things have come culturally.
Yeah, dealing with like drag in itself.
Yeah,
like
so I mean, let's talk a little bit about someone like because you're right. Like when Paris is Burning is coming out, there is something of a sea change in cultural awareness and acceptance of gay culture.
Yeah.
Which was really just starting to happen around then, 1990, 91.
Yeah.
It started to kind of happen a bit.
But in a positive way.
Yeah,
because
so like, what I think I'm trying to say is like, a lot of the movies that come out that are, I don't want to say taking advantage of it, but like, supplementing it or being part of that change tend to have a message, tend to have, a different, you have your story, but you also have the overall cultural lesson to be learned on top of it all. Movies with the message.
It was like a bunch of friends that just wanted to have fun and make a movie together.
Yes, and I think
it makes it
more
fun
important
to watch them have fun.
Yeah, and I think it makes it more important in a sense.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's unapologetic. It's basically saying, look, this is us, take it or leave it.
As drag performers.
Yeah, like this is what we do, this is who we are. If you don't like it, that's fine. Like, it's not meant for you. Whereas, some of these other movies that we're going to be seeing, like My Own Private Idaho or...
I'm thinking of like Soap Dish, where they
there's a lot of villainization of gay and trans people in some of these movies.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, in the coming years, up to even now, just the villainization.
So I mean,
of like gay, trans,
but when you have like
queer
gay-centric
people.
Stories.
Yeah.
They're trying to show the redemption side and like, hey, look, we are valid and worthwhile members of society. Like, they're really leaning into that part of the message. Mm-hmm. And I think this is more important in a sense like because it's basically saying, yeah, this is us.
Yeah, the campiness that I like where, we can't go on this planet as men, so we got to take this pill to become women. Yeah. And that's funny to me. I don't. It's like only women are allowed.
It's a very loose premise to get them into the drag scenario.
Yeah,
and I think it's also important to show that it's women who are pretending to be men who are taking this pill and becoming drag women.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? Because you really have 4 crew members.
Well, 2 of them are. Well, one of them is Doris Fish, who.
The ringleader of this project, for all intents and purposes. Phillip R. Ford put it together, but Doris was the mastermind behind it.
And his real name is Phillip Mills. Doris Fish is her drag name. I mean, their drag name. I don't know if they... But in the beginning, Doris Fish is in his male form. And then, you know, when they take the pill, he's in drag as Doris Fish. And then that goes...
Yeah, the character's name is Tracy Daniels. The male version is Dan Tracey.
Tracy.
And then it becomes Tracy Daniels. But yeah, Doris Fish is,
the actress.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's there's two women who are, in the beginning, dressed as men, but you can obviously tell that they're just women. They just have like fake mustaches.
Yeah.
And, you know, the mustaches are off and they're just, you know, as drag women.
Yeah, it's Ramona Fisher and Lori Naslund. Lori Naslund
are the two women that dress up as women. And then you have like Miss X.
Well, you have the fourth crew member.
The fourth crew member. Miss X was... No, she's the bag. She's the antagonist of this.
It's a dual role. So you have Miss X playing Vel Crowford, which is kind of like a dual pun of a name because you have like Velcro and then you're also trying to go for the Crawford implication.
Yeah.
Vel Crowford, who is the Empress of Earth, who gives them the assignment and say that they have to do this thing, and you know gives a little aside and like, oh, you're going to see somebody who looks exactly like me, Queen Veneer.
Right.
Once you arrive, don't worry about the similar appearance or whatever. And Queen Veneer is basically the cop of Vegas in space. But yeah, you do have a fourth crew member who does not make the trip. Lieutenant Dick Hunter, played by Timmy Spence. And he, when they take the sex change pills, he overdoses and disappears. He evaporates.
Yeah.
So I think when very early on in these early sequences, you get a nice little mix of bad effects. I'm trying to say it like in a positive way.
Yeah, I wish I watched this movie when I was younger, because I would probably be like enamored by it. But
yeah, okay. It's very heavily inspired not only by those 50s and 60s sci-fi movies, but very clearly like 1960s Batman era.
Yeah.
Because it's very colorful. Almost everything is done on an angle. When you have like the earthquakes or the meteor showers coming through, they're all just like, you know, jittering themselves and the camera shaking just to kind of give that illusion because they can't do anything different. It's that type of low budget thing where, you know, oh, okay, well, let's just turn the camera sideways and have them walk up a building as Batman and Robin. It's that type of vibe that you're getting from this the whole time. But what I really like is that Phillip R. Ford is not afraid to go for any and all camera tricks he can possibly think of and really play with film and processing and editing, because, you know, right from the start you see them do the sex change pill transition, and you have the cross dissolves with the primal effects and the bad fade from one scene to another, and you know, like they're making like monkey noises as they go from men to women and all this kind of stuff. But Lieutenant Dick Hunter, he dies. So it's only 3 left. But it's an interesting introduction to that. Actually, the real introduction is the opening sequence where you have footage of an actual rocket launch and some neon lights of Vegas and whatnot over a really good song by Timmy Spence, the guy who played Lieutenant Dick Hunter.
Yeah.
I loved that opening theme song. That's probably in contention for best song of the year for me.
Yeah, I like the music. Okay, so I like the music that was in this movie. And I know that there's a blog that the director did that is pretty much gives all the information about everything about what he did.
Yeah.
On the making of this movie, and it's
his
extremely
before it.
Yeah, and it's extremely riveting. I don't know. I was like, I love this reading about this,
And he has a bunch of YouTube videos that supplement stuff.
And it shows, like, they did, just to make more money to release this movie, they would do benefit shows across San Francisco, being like, you know, but in some of the songs that they sang on stage, they have YouTube videos, were in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, some of it was lifted from their stage show.
Yeah.
I wish there was more of it, honestly, because, like, one of the tagline, or really the only tagline that's listed on IMDb is the first all-drag queen sci-fi musical ever. I wanted it to be more of a musical, and it's not. It's the opening song, and then you have a musical interlude during the dream sequence part, and then you have a very quick bunching together of songs at the end.
Yeah, I wanted more Vegas, I guess. Yes. I wanted the Vegas.
Yeah. That's one of the problems of the limited budget and scope and not having a script, is that you don't get a way to plan these things out and plan your scenes ahead of time and understand what would be good for a cohesive story, because it's a couple of individual people's rooms, and then you have this warehouse that was converted into a makeshift mall with basically a couple different vendor stalls.
Yeah.
And that's Vegas.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of these scenes are extremely cramped, and it makes sense, you know, again, like the limitations, because they're shooting in people's apartments. They're not even, for the most part, they're shooting in people's apartments. And so you don't have the room to do a two-shot. You don't have a room, you know, you don't have the room to have multiple people on camera at the same time all the time.
Yeah, they're showing two people dancing in a corner. Yeah. But then they shoot another scene where two people are watching them.
Yes. And almost all of the dialogue is someone saying something, and then you cut to someone else responding. Yeah. But there's a little bit too much gap in between them, and so it kind of, you know, like, it needed to be a little bit more tight with the editing to make the conversation flow, but you have those leads and you have those pauses before and after each sentence that kind of throws off the rhythm of the whole thing. And that's just because of the circumstances of what they had to film. So it's unfortunate, but yeah, it does kind of mean that, you know, if you had a finished script before you went in, you could plan for more musical breaks. You could say, okay, now this is where we could put this song. You know, if they're going undercover as go-go dancers, as you know, showgirls, then let's see that. Let's incorporate that into the story and have them, you know, listening in while they're dancing. You know, maybe do like a roaming dance around the mall or something, and have them listen in to what their people are saying and try to get clues to the theft. You know, there could be different circumstances that were put in. I think plot was secondary.
Yeah, I mean, plot-wise, I was like, I don't even know what's going on. But
I think it was secondary for them, too.
Yeah.
So, again, it's sort of a matter of what is important to you when you're watching a movie. I think if you go and watch the trailer for this thing, if you go and watch, again, on that blog, there's that 1986 video teaser. Did you watch that? Mm-hmm. It's like a promo spot where they're basically trying to raise money again, sort of like a pre-Kickstarter type of a thing.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, here's this project that we're really excited about. Hopefully you'll be excited enough to help us invest and get this finished.
Yeah,
they show a nice extended trailer of the movie with that opening song that I'm talking about.
Yeah. That's how they were constantly just needing money for this movie at all times, and they would get sometimes generous handouts,
and some of it was funded by shady operations, whether it's prostitution or possible drug lords or whatever.
Yes.
So they did what they could to make this happen, but you know, film is very expensive, and again, this is 1982, you know, you don't
it's
have...
the 80s, yeah.
You don't
82
have the
to
ability
86.
to do digital... They couldn't even do video cameras when they started this.
Yeah, and the director was going to school at the time, and then he was also working like at a film type
a
of
film lab to get
film
employee
lab.
discounts for some of this
Yeah,
stuff.
and he said but then he was fired from there, and that's where he was like, well, there goes my discount for all these like film equipment
Yeah.
that he was using for the movie.
And obviously some of the budget went towards drugs.
Yes.
But films are expensive no matter what. I went to film school. I had to pay for my film processing out of pocket, and we did do actual film for virtually all of the projects that we did, 16 millimeter and 8 millimeter, and that is pricey. So when you're talking about a feature-length movie with multiple takes, multiple everything, and big productions, and having to pay for these set pieces and costumes and all this other stuff, and it's a big labor of love, and it shows. But if you're watching it as a legitimate story, it's not there. I think the other thing that was a bit surprising to me is that most of the jokes just don't land to me. I'll talk about this at the end.
There was some,
would you
like,
watch it again?
Shade, like there was shade being thrown like a little bit, like
Yeah,
with their hair. It's like your hair looks like that. It's kind of like pre.
Yes, I mean most of the jokes had to
Reading
do with
the
like
room.
superficial appearances and
Yeah.
stuff like that, which is fine. That's fine. I wonder if there might have been more in jokes that we just don't know because we're not part of the San Francisco club scene of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there were some references that were thrown in that would have had the crowds howling.
Yeah, they
go
it's
way
something
over our
within
heads.
that. Within their group or just that time and culture.
Yeah, because
that made sense to them.
Because things can change a lot.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about just other stuff, like even when you're watching SNL from 1975 to 80 whatever, a lot of that is not funny because I just don't get it.
Yeah, I think
and that's
exactly what I was thinking at the same time. Is like this is 1980 to 1985 SNL. This is Stripes. This is Animal House.
Mm-hmm.
Where I don't like Animal House. I don't like Stripes. I think they're extremely boring and poorly paced, and they are just not funny.
I like Stripes up to a certain point.
I would have to watch it again, but I remember like the second half is just like, what the fuck is this?
Well, because then it gets serious.
Yeah.
I was like, where's the fun?
But like Animal House...
When I was younger.
Animal House, like sure, if I'm 6 years old, like, oh, I'm a zit. Okay, that's funny, I guess. But in context, while watching the whole movie, it's like, good God, this is boring as shit. I get the same vibe from this in a sense, because this is early 80s comedy.
Yeah, I was amused by just the way that they were throwing shade, and you can just kind of see that they were laughing amongst themselves, and I was like, oh, that's cute that I just thought it was cute that they were having fun with each other.
Oh, for sure. But again,
I
like,
didn't.
as an outside
I
observer,
didn't get it.
Yeah, I think.
But I'm like, watching them having fun was my entertainment.
Yeah, I think it's really just watching the movie making was what my entertainment was.
Yeah.
Because the story and the script.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it ends. It gets to where they needed to get because they were trying to find those jewels.
I guess for whatever reason, it's never explained why
they needed it in the first place.
Well, I mean, it kind of was in a way, but also not, because okay, the jewels are important because it helps the rotation of the planet, I guess. Mm-hmm. But they're still on the planet, so what does it matter who has them? Like no one left the planet with the jewels. They're still on the planet, so what is happening? And then it turns out like it's the the person's assistant, the Empress's assistant that has them, and so why was she stealing it, especially when she wasn't a real person at the end? None of it made sense.
I was like, I don't even know what's going on, but I'm still wanting to know what's going on.
Yeah, like, I'm less concerned about the plot and it making sense. I just wish it was funnier to me as an outsider. And, you know, most of the situations were the jokes. It wasn't that the words were the jokes. It's like, oh, look at the situation that we're in. Isn't this funny? But it's not. It's not, like, I don't know. There's so many times when they try to explain the space stuff or they try to explain the science stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just a bunch of gobbledygook words, and that's not funny. It's just not. You know, like, like, the scene where they're talking about the color dial thing. It's like, explaining that, okay, we need this color dial because the atmosphere isn't good enough to hold color, so we have this dial, and it only works within a 10-mile radius or whatever like this, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, Doris is like, well, how does it work? Why do we need to know? We don't need to know.
I think maybe...
And the explanation isn't funny.
Right. Yeah. But I think... Well,
it would have been funnier to say, oh, I don't know, honey. Let's just, you know, just roll with it, all right?
But then I feel like they would be, like, breaking their character or something.
I don't know.
But, yeah, I wasn't really... I think it was just like, you know, the director was like, hey, I want to work in black and white, so let's just do black and white.
I think it was someone else who wanted... It was either Doris or Miss X that wanted
they were like,
to do
let's do a black and white.
Yeah, like, again, as an homage to some of these classic film stars and having this stuff. I liked the black and white scene.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that at all.
It was just the explanation from color to black and white.
I don't need the attempt at technical explanation.
I think maybe they thought that they should explain to the audience, because you're watching in color and then all of a sudden black and white and then it's color again, and then people be like, but why is it black and white? I don't know. Maybe that's what they think. They have to do some weird explanation for that.
Maybe. I just wish it was... I wish it tried to be obviously funnier.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, I wonder... Okay, we know that Doris and... Who else? I don't know who else were in Sluts-a-go-go. Was Miss X part of Sluts-a-go-go?
It was
Ginger
Doris...
Quest or...
Doris Fish, Tippy, and Miss X.
Okay, Tippy as well. Like, I don't know if they are actually, like, comedy queens, quote unquote, or, you know, like, they might have been just song and dance queens who are trying to make a movie and doing the best they can with their comedic chops or limited, you know. They might not have had somebody that they knew to punch it up, which is fine, but, you know, what's there isn't for me in that way. That's all I'm saying. But there's so much visually right with this movie.
Yeah. Okay, so my favorite scene is that dream sequence.
Yes. Actually, I don't know if that's my favorite. Yeah, it probably is. Because it's extremely experimental.
Yeah. It gave me Houseu vibes.
It was very 60s drug trip type of a thing.
Yeah.
A lot of
and then like when
cross cuts, dissolves, a lot of weird imagery and you know,
like
pulsating zooms and stuff like that.
Like Buñuel type.
Yeah, Louis Buñuel.
Yeah.
Yep. Or a Salvador Dali sequence in Hitchcock and Spellbound or something like that. Yes. Yeah, I think.
But that's what they wanted to go for. They wanted to do a scene like that. And
it works great.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And I love, again, the 60s Batman aesthetic of everything is tilted to the side. You know, and just like, it's okay to show the flaws of the set design and show where the ceiling starts and the drapes begin. Like, that's fine. Like, that adds to the appeal, in my opinion. That adds to the camp aspect of it. I really liked the way that they did the dissolve from color to black and white. You know, it was really interesting to see the behind-the-scenes explanation of that, where he just took two cameras, one with black and white film and one with color film, and just ran both at the same time. Because that was the easiest way to accomplish that effect. That's a really interesting way to approach it, I think. And it worked out. And yeah, like the black and white stuff, you know, obviously you have a different way of... utilizing camera work when you're doing that. all of the stuff that was in we haven't even really talked about the individual characters at all, but like Princess Angel's room, Tippy, who plays Princess Angel, I loved the hand-drawn black and white aesthetic of her furniture and all these different things.
And then
it's just so many different visual interests.
Yeah, I liked Princess, just that character, because I liked
I think she's the best actress of the
makeup
bunch.
and everything.
Oh, yeah. Very creepy doll.
Yeah, which is, I mean, she's like this robot that we see, because you see a part where
we don't
it's
know
like,
she's a robot till the end, basically. Yeah.
Well,
like,
you see a part where she's getting ready, like she's sitting at her vanity, and she's like twisting her hand around. Like she's putting her hand on, like it's a robot hand.
But isn't that like the last 20 minutes when they're about to do their routine?
No, that was when she was getting ready.
Beginning?
And then she's like picking a face to put on.
Oh, that's at the very beginning as well?
Well, not in the beginning. When they show her, like the very like first scene of her.
That's what I'm saying. Like the first scene of her is she comes in and says, "Let me give you a guided tour of Vegas."
But there's a scene where she's getting ready.
Okay.
Where she's sitting at the vanity.
Yeah.
And you have the different heads.
I thought that was at the end. Near the end.
I thought that was like in the middle-ish.
Oh,
I don't know. I just like it wasn't the.
But it's cool looking.
Yeah,
that's the important thing.
And that reminded me of like Return to Oz with the heads that the queen had to choose. You know, whatever head she wanted to wear that day. That was similar to this, where there's like different heads, and then obviously you see like mannequin heads, and then you see her real head on a pedestal, and you see her like pick she's putting like the face onto her face, like popcorn style, like in the movie Popcorn,
right?
And then you see her put like her face on to get ready, and then there's a point where like she's twisting her hand on. There was a point where it was like her hand was being twisted around, like as if she was a robot, and I knew she was a robot right then and there.
Okay, I missed that specific spot, and I was typing notes or looking something else up. All of that type of stuff, like the heads, I remember being like in the last third of the movie.
And then I mean at the very end, everyone knows that she's a robot. Like I don't know. Yeah,
at the very end, there's a very long. That's also pacing is a problem at times. I mean, and that has to do with the fact that there wasn't a finished script, and so they just kind of added things like a chase scene and
because they were like we need some sort of suspense, like let's do a fight / chase scene or something.
And there's a scene where she's basically cornered, and then she falls down the stairs over and over again, and they only have enough room in the shooting location for like 4 steps, and so they just shoot the same 4 steps 10
and then
different
just
times.
Like her falling, and then you see like a doll falling,
and then like the head falls off and blood tubes and stuff like that. But that's when the whole big and then the gems fall out of the inside of her head.
Yeah.
And so everything's good. But it just didn't make sense because Princess Angel was the assistant or the helper robot of Ginger Quest's character, Empress Nueva Gabor. So why stealing them? Why steal the gems if you're working and the robot of the person who owned them?
I have no idea. She thought they were pretty. I have no idea.
Yeah. But yes, I agree. Princess Angel's appearance was great. I think obviously Doris Fish is, and you have Lieutenant Debbie and Lieutenant Sheila, Ramona Fisher, and Laurie Naslund. Some of the ancillary characters were way too one-tone for me. I wish there would have been a little bit more done with the makeup other than just to make them solid tinted faces. It's like pure blue, pure orange, pure green. I wish there would have been a little bit more interest and variance. But apparently Doris did all of the makeup for everyone.
Oh, okay.
Like, before each day's shooting, everyone appeared like barefaced, and you had to spend hours putting everyone's makeup on, and then they could start shooting.
Yeah, this like an all-day affair.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Maybe she didn't want to keep track of all these different facial features, or I don't know. Maybe some of the people who were in this movie weren't really drag performers themselves and didn't know how to do their own makeup, or maybe
yeah,
it's just
I think like
controlling thing. Who knows? But
you have the three. You have Miss X, Tippy, and Doris. I think those were the three. But then they probably brought on friends who were drag queens, maybe, or just their friends, and they're like, "I'm gonna put you in makeup."
Yeah, it sounded like a lot of this was people who were like Ramona Fisher. I think was either roommates or neighbors of Miss X.
Yeah, it was just like, "Hey, do you want to be in a movie that we're gonna make?"
Yeah, and like Sandel Kincaid, I think, was Miss X's girlfriend, is what I read. And that was, I guess, maybe possibly like a little bit of drama in that Miss X had a real girl as a girlfriend. By the way, yeah, Doris Fish and Laurie Naslander were married in order for Doris Fish to stay in the country, since she was from Australia, started in drag in the early 70s in Sydney, Australia, came over, and then married Laurie Nasland for green card.
Reasons,
so, beard situation there. But yeah, some of that visual stuff with the facial tinting, I wish there was more. At least we got some positives in the costumes, like you have like the eyeball necklace for that one person. You have like the eyeball boobies for the other person.
Yeah. I mean, that was funny.
The dresses were all a little bit more interesting in how they incorporate space garb and whatnot into it. So even though the color of the dress tended to match the face and it was one tone, it was still a little bit more interesting. Let's talk a little bit about some of the cast and crew. There's no awards to mention, of course, but there's a lot of names that I want to mention, but virtually nobody did anything other than this. So we'll just run through a couple of names and their characters here and there. So we got Phillip R. Ford, who was the director, and also played a person named Terrace. There's like a very brief cameo. I don't know if there's even any lines. I think he's in like the opening Vegas touring group. He directed a short film called Roller Coaster to Hell while he was a student that got a little bit of prestige locally, and that's what connected him to Doris Fish. Doris Fish had a minor role in that short film as well. And so they got connected and say, hey, let's make a movie together, basically. He was part of helping, I don't know if this was during this movie or not, but he was part of the Sluts-a-go-go nightclub act in terms of like producing, directing it. I don't know if that was before the movie started. It was probably after, from what the information online indicates. And then he also helped produce and direct Simply Stunning: The Doris Fish Story in 2002, which was a stage show as well. He mostly does stage productions, not so much the film stuff these days. Doris Fish, we already mentioned her history there in Sydney, Australia. Again, was in that short film Roller Coaster to Hell for a scene. Was in one episode of a TV show called Partners in Crime with Linda Carter and Lonnie Anderson, which I had never heard of. A pornographic parody called Sex Wars, which is obviously spoofing Star Wars. It is an X-rated movie. And passed away before this movie was able to come out. Passed away on June 22nd, 1991 from complications of AIDS. A few weeks later, Tippy, who played Princess Angel, also passed away in August of 1991 from AIDS. So all of this time got very close to the finish line of being able to see this movie released and just didn't quite get there, unfortunately. I kind of wonder if this movie would have been released if they hadn't become sick, because some of the financial backing came from those benefit shows to raise money for the illnesses of Doris Fish. And especially like one specific benefactor from the blog post. It sounded like there was one.
Yeah, for Doris.
Yeah. And so if those benefits hadn't happened, maybe this would still be in the can. I don't know. Or it would have released, 10 years down the line. So that's the unfortunate end of Doris, and there is a little title card at the end saying for Doris. Miss X played Queen Veneer and Velcro for Empress of Earth. She was also in Sex Wars, and also a thing called It Listens from the Radio, which was released in 2020. Again, a lot of these people don't have credits other than this. Ginger Quest played Empress Nueva Gabor, the person who had the girlinium jewels stolen. Ramona Fisher was Lieutenant Mike Shadows, Sheila. Laurie Nasland was Lieutenant Steve Dane / Debbie. Lieutenant Dick Hunter did some of the music, was basically the musical director for Sluts-a-go-go. That was played by Timmy Spence. He did the opening theme song. He has been in a couple of additional things like All About Evil, Virtue, and Beach Blanket Armageddon. Frida Lay played Jane the Computer / Lala Galaxy. You got Arturo Galster, who played Noodles Nebula, who was in that little George Jetson space car thing, which was a really neat little effect that they did there. Arturo played Doris in Simply Stunning, the Doris Fish story, and he was also in one episode of Nash Bridges. And then you have Winetta Whitehead was a character played by Sylvana Nova. She was like the lead vendor in the Vegas Mall. You have Babs Velour played by Sandell Kincaid. Tommy Pace made an appearance as Mrs. Velour. So you have a lot of people who are probably known in that space in San Francisco around that time, but not really known nationally until Trauma picked this up, probably for the most part. But now we know their names, and I wanted to say some of them here, and then obviously if you're watching on YouTube, I'll have the visual representation of each of them as I said that. So that's the cast. Not much to say in terms of credits because this was a pet project, and a bunch of friends just banded together and made something happen. It got released to the masses. After October 1991, its little Castro Theater premiere, well, not little, jam-packed premiere of the Castro Theater, it did eventually make its way to Sundance in 1992 to sold-out screenings.
Yeah.
It then traveled the festival circuit and went to like Cannes and Vienna and all these other different things, and that's when Troma was able to come through and pick it up, and then it got exposure on E, and then obviously we're talking about it because it made its way onto USA Up All Night as well.
Yeah, and it also went to Tokyo, Japan, where it became very well known. And on the blog post, they even post pictures of the director Phillip and then Miss X with the host of Up All Night. They even have the
little bumper segment.
Bumper for it, just them introducing themselves in this movie for Vegas in Space.
It's really worth looking through, honestly. If you have any interest in this movie at all, do look it up. We will have the link on our website, of course. I'll also link to a Vice.com article that talks about the importance of this movie and its place, which I think is really important. And, like I said, just to add to what Vice said, I think it's, again, important because it doesn't try to be anything more than it is. It is unapologetic, but not in a negative way. It's not, it's basically just saying, hey, this is another aspect of gay culture. This is another thing that exists in the world, and look at how much fun we're having.
Yeah.
And that's just as valid.
And I think in San Francisco, there's like when I was looking up stuff on Doris Fish, there's a Facebook page dedicated to her, and I think November they named November 2nd, I believe, as Doris Fish Day in San Francisco. But, I mean, she did die in June, so... But I don't know... They did do that benefit for the ailing Doris Fish on November 2nd, 1990.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was because of that.
That could be. Yeah.
And then in Golden Gate Park, there's a little area. It's like an AIDS plaque. It's all the people who have died of AIDS, and Doris Fish and Tippy are together on a plaque in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco.
Yeah, we don't know exactly when this movie is released. We just know it was October.
Yeah.
So we don't know the exact day of the premiere. I did try to look up information on it.
Yeah. Even there's in that blog post that the director sent out, he puts the premiere date, and it's him showing the long line of the Castro theater of all the people wanting to see it.
And the front of the movie theater marquee says dates that other movies are showing, so it's probably in the first half of November or October, but that's as close as I know without trying to find some local
an
San
actual
Francisco
date,
newspaper archives, which are not available very easily. So if you know, let us know, because we can update our information and have it on the website as well. So we'll move on to true crime and pop culture.
So I guess we can do last week, where we'll do another 1-900 number, just, for our USA Up All Night month.
Yeah.
And I have another
everywhere.
one.
Yeah, I think every single commercial break had at least 1-900.
Yeah, and there are a lot on YouTube, and they're all amusing. Last week I did 1-900 Fun Mate, and this one, I'm just going down the line where I just did 1-900 number commercials in 1991, and the next one I'm going to do is called 1-900 Pals. So it's 1-900-786 Pals.
The way we see it, the day is shot, and you only have a few options left. You can continue to stare straight ahead at the tube, you can go to the refrigerator, or you can go to sleep. Or you can talk to the friendliest girls in the world. Talk to us. We're live, one-on-one live. When the day is shot and you only have a few options left, call 1-900-786-PALS. We'd love to be your phone pal now and forever. $2.99 per minute. Callers 18 or over.
So that one is $2.99 per minute, which is
cheaper.
No, that's more expensive than the last one.
I thought it was $5.99 a minute.
I think it was $9.99 just for the call.
So this is cheaper. $2.99 a minute overall.
I
guess it depends.
But what if you're on for a half an hour?
Well, then don't be.
Even for 5 minutes.
Best option, just don't call.
You're paying $15-$20 for
That's all of these. That's you calling the New Kids on the Block line too. That's also $3 a minute. So
I know. I'm just saying the first one was probably the cheapest, because I think it was just $9.99 for the full call.
Maybe.
But
I thought there was also a per minute after that.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. That was a week ago. Back when we thought this movie was going to be Deadly Desire, and it turned out to be Vegas in Space because the streaming got messed up.
Yeah. Yeah, but some of these are just I feel like this is still more expensive, because they're usually $2.99 the first minute, and then it's 99 cents or $1.99.
Yeah. There was one that we were looking up that said it was something like a 12-minute minimum for the call. You were going to get charged for 12 minutes no matter what, and it was a $3 per minute call. But they had instituted minimum of 12 minutes, but $2.99
so you're paying
a minute. So you're paying at minimum $36.
30, yeah. So you're giving us $36 no matter what.
At least. That's amazing to me. That was the first commercial that I had heard.
I mean, this is
mentioned a minimum. So
the beginning of.
At least they're nice. At least they're the nicest girls on the phone.
Yeah, call them because they're your pals.
Today or forever. One of the two.
I did, we'll put the commercial link on the website, but on the commercial it says in the bottom, like, Earthquake Communications Inc. or something.
That's the name of the company.
That's the name. I just what
it's like
generic
shake your world or something.
Yeah, it's like, what generic name is that? Earthquake Inc.
Yeah. It's not encouraging. I don't know, like Earthquake. Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious on the bottom of it. And then, since we didn't have an exact date of the release of this movie, we looked at the TV guide that we have that's in the very beginning of October. This is only up until October 4th. But on October 3rd, Thursday, October 3rd, 1991, was the 29th anniversary of The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, and that entire episode is on YouTube. Including commercials.
Yeah.
And the commercials were more interesting to me. I mean, there were some tidbits.
If you've never seen Johnny Carson stuff before, it's a good representation of what people like about him. But
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen so many Johnny Carson compilations just from growing up that I've seen almost all of that stuff dozens of times.
Yeah.
It's nothing new. And this is basically the year before he leaves.
Yeah, this is...
Or a half year before he leaves.
I was thinking, so they do this every year? Is it a clip? It's just a clip show.
It's a clip show every
But
year, yeah.
But it was clips from throughout the 29 years, because they showed stuff from, in his early, 60s.
Yeah, they had him singing and dancing with Pearl Bailey.
Yeah.
But most of it's more recent stuff.
More recent. Because I was thinking, do they just... I thought, you know how they do anniversary shows? They only show the best of clips for that year. So I thought they would just show 1991 only.
No.
But this was throughout the 29 years he was
Johnny
host.
Carson was a massive deal back then.
Oh,
and so,
yeah.
I mean... Yeah, people took any access and excuse they could to celebrate him at that time. So yeah, I mean, it was a primetime special and everything, and hour and a half long.
So some of the highlights were with Roseanne Arnold, Albert Brooks, Julio Iglesias, Jay Leno, David Letterman, Eddie Murphy, Annie Potts, Robin Williams.
These are all clips. These are not people who showed up for the anniversary show, which is weird.
I thought that's what it was.
Yeah, I thought they'd come to pay tribute.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Just
do new sketches or something, but no, it's just clips from the past with all of them.
Yeah. That surprised me.
Yeah.
Because it's just him. He does his monologue in the beginning, and then he's like, "Let's show a clip of whatever."
Yeah.
And then it shows the clip, and then it'll go to commercial.
All outdated jokes.
Yeah, about George. Mostly about local, George Bush, for H.R. Bush.
But stuff that you had to have been watching the news the previous day to understand. Type of jokes.
It's which I mean.
Very specific humor for very specific day of the week.
Or even just local politicians too. He was talking about some governor of
he was talking about governor and whatever races and things like that too. So it's
it's during.
If you were watching the news, then you got it.
Yeah.
But if you don't remember things from 1991,
this is what when we were watching it, I was like, I don't get any of this, and this takes me to the SNL from the 70s to the early 80s again, where it's just it's going over my head, and I don't, because people are laughing and cracking up, and I'm like, I don't even know what is funny.
I mean, it's the same type of thing that we see in SNL with Weekend Update now, or some of the jokes on the Daily Show, where some of the references are going to be about what we know of these politicians' behaviors or actions, and if you aren't familiar with who Mitch McConnell is or something like that, then you're not going to get the joke.
Right.
And so it's the same type of thing with politicians from 30 years ago.
It's like a 10-year-old now being I don't...
Yeah, exactly. So that's,
unless they are really into politics.
but that wasn't most of the show. That was just, just the normal.
That was the
opening
monologue. But even just some of the, some of the funny stuff that was happening in some of these skits, like when he does Shakespeare stuff, I'm like, I'm not laughing.
I mean, I get the idea behind the joke.
I get it, but I'm just like, why is this funny? The only skit that he did I thought was funny was when he was playing like a politician, and he'd be like, I graduated from Harvard, and it was like, brr. It's like
he's hooked up to a lie detector test.
Yeah, and then it was like, I went to Harvard for 2 years, and it was like, brr. And it's like, okay, I barely graduated 4th grade, and then it went by. So it was just stuff like that was funny.
Yeah. That was a well-produced, like, and that was early 80s as well. So
that's like stuff you see, like, even now at, like Second City, with just improv.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a solid sketch. And it wasn't specific to any person. He was trying to be a pretend politician to just sort of riff on the idea of crooked politicians in general. I thought it was also interesting that we got the Jeff Daniels SNL promo where you have Dana Carvey and Phil Hartman as Carson and McMahon straddling him. Because that was the episode where Jeff Daniels comes in and pretends to be Jay Leno. We watched it as part of the podcast. We watched
that one with the falling star.
Yeah.
And open the fridge or whatever.
One of the better SNL episodes in one. So
like some of the commercials we saw, a lot of them were for TV shows that we have talked about, and it was cool
NBC
to
self-promotion. Yeah, it was interesting to see actual clips of some of these shows that we hadn't remembered.
Because some of these shows I'm talking about, and I never even, like Flesh and Blood, and then
Pacific Station and Sisters and
Nurses. Then even some of these movies that we will see, like Shattered. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited about Shattered now.
Like I want to watch Shattered now, right now.
I knew nothing about it. But yeah, Shattered with, what's his face? The guy from Major League, and then Bob Hoskins.
Yeah, and it's a psychological thriller, which is,
And you got Frankie and Johnny promo in there. And you got Fisher King. What was the song that they put behind the Fisher King commercial?
It's the song that they sing at the end of Fisher King.
Is it? Okay.
It's the I Like New York in June, isn't it?
No, it wasn't. It was like a pop song. It was very off-putting.
Oh, then I don't know.
It seemed out of place. It didn't fit the vibe of what Fisher King was.
Yeah, it makes Fisher King look like it's going to be a comedy.
Yeah, because they focus on how good of a comedic performance Robin Williams has.
Right.
It's like,
if you're going to go and see that
you're watching this
comedy,
as a Carson fan, I don't know.
But, there is a lot of commercials with people who are famous now. Well, not a lot of them. There were a few commercials that the one with Dan Castellaneta.
It was a Burger King commercial.
That was a Burger King commercial
for like $60 breakfast sandwiches.
60 cents. It was like $60. Yeah, a lot of them
60-cent breakfast sandwiches.
And I was like, why is he doing this?
Because it was like a year into The Simpsons.
I know. And then I was like, yeah, thinking about that.
I mean, he was doing the voice and Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead at the same time, remember? Yeah. So,
I mean, I have the promo that we could just put on the website of the live primetime special, because it was
TV Guide ad.
The TV Guide ad, because it was on. They re-aired it October 4th, 5th, 15th, and 17th.
Wow.
So they just really wanted to. People really want to celebrate him that month.
All right, so we'll move on to rankings and ratings. Where on your 1 to 5 star scale are you going to put Vegas in Space?
This is going to be another controversial.
Okay.
I'm giving this a 3.
Why is that controversial?
I don't know, because it's not a good movie. If you watch without knowing... I started to really like this movie the more I read about the making of the movie.
Yeah.
And it made me appreciate it more, and then I started, like, crying a little bit.
Yeah, thinking about,
Just thinking about, like, even just, like, the whole San Francisco of it, it just made me, like, really sad and miss everything.
Yeah.
So I'm giving it a 3.
Okay. I'm not going as high. I'm going to say it's a 1.5 on my 0 to 4 star scale, which I think is also maybe higher than what you might have expected. I don't know. It's not a good film, unfortunately. Like, if you're looking at it on the surface with just what's there. But, I mean, yes, looking into the making of the movie, learning more about its production and the people who are involved gets you more emotionally invested into it and makes you care about what you just saw, which is probably true of a lot of movies, but it resonated more here because of, you know, the effort that Phillip R. Ford is taking to document and archive as much information as he has about all of this. It's a fascinating look to see that this movie basically took 10 years to get made, and now, you know, it's still being found and discovered by people today. Every movie's worth watching once. Would you watch it again?
Yeah, I would for sure want to see this at, like, if it was playing at the Castro or something again.
I think I would only want to watch it again if it's in one of those types of public theater settings where I can be with the crowd it's meant for and experience it with them to help me understand what I'm missing.
Yeah.
I think that's, you know, a very helpful vibe. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not unthinkable that some Chicago club would pick this up and show it.
I would want to go back to San Francisco and watch it there.
Oh, that would be like ideal conditions for sure.
Yeah, if it was playing here somewhere and there was like a double feature, I would do like a Paris is Burning, then this, then 100%. I would love that. I don't know.
Yep.
I'll work at a movie theater just to do like staff pick, and this will be my pick.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to say that Music Box couldn't do that here, and then, you know, hopefully the community would come out.
Yeah, because I think this should it should be shown to.
It's meant for an audience.
Yeah.
It's meant for an audience. But if you out there do want to watch Vegas in Space with an audience or not, as of this recording in August 2022, it's available on Amazon Prime, digital rental, VHS, or DVD. As always, check your local listings. You can listen to us on all of your major podcasting platforms. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends. You can email us at 1991movierewind@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and YouTube. Just search 1991 Movie Rewind or go to 1991movierewind.com for the full list of movies along with show notes and more. Next week, we're continuing our USA Up All Night adventure with the movie Sweet Poison. That's only available on VHS. So, we will see you then.